2, 3,
Maybe something's wrong.
You're dead wrong.
I woke up this morning knowing I was right.
Know what's wrong with it. Know what we do is wrong.
You're dead wrong.
Hey everybody, how you doing? What's going on? Hey, what's up? I don't expect a response now, of course.
Well, hello to you, Shawn.
Hi. Hello. Hi to you, Aaron.
I decided to say hello to you since you would respond since you're here.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, we're both in the same room right now.
Not that I'm against saying hi to everybody. I don't know if I could handle that. Just that silence after you said hello.
Yeah, no, you have to remind yourself, oh, I'm recording this on a certain date. It's released on a later date. People are listening to it across time and history, probably mostly clustered around the beginning, but with potential spikes in the future. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe they're at work. Maybe they're changing their kid's diaper. You know, any number of things that they could be doing. They might be kayaking.
But what they're not doing is standing here just off screen where we can't see them, hearing what we're saying right now and choosing not to respond. Like they're stone-faced.
Even
just
if
like,
it feels that
hi,
way.
Everybody. And they're like...
Yeah, just... And
Complete
for
silence.
listeners at home, Aaron just gave me a stone face, kind of like very serious, non-speaking look, like someone might aggressively do at, I don't know, like...
Yeah, to put a point on the fact that they're not saying anything. Like, yeah, I heard your warm welcome. I'm being silent in the face of it.
So, welcome to Seriously Wrong, episode Shawn Seen a Whale.
Yeah, Shawn saw a whale.
It's actually absolutely true. I saw a whale.
A killer whale.
Yeah, orca.
Yeah.
Another name for an orca is grumpus. That's a historic name for orcas. Well, it's
really?
actually
Grumpus?
Grumpus.
It sounds like Krampus, but like a grumpy version. It reminds me of Christmas. I'm imagining a grumpy Santa Claus more so than a orca.
That's what I thought too. Yeah,
Grumpus.
So you guys talking about grumpy Santa Claus, who's so fundamentally grumpy he changed his name?
Or he's like his evil twin, or maybe not evil twin, but like grumpy twin.
Right? Yeah, he's too grumpy to deliver the toys to the kids. Maybe that's actually what we have. Maybe Santa Claus is real. He turned grumpy. He no longer delivers the toys to the kids, and that's why parents have to give toys to kids from Santa, quote unquote, because the real Santa's turned to grumpus. And no longer does that. So actually, I want to be technically correct. Grumpus is actually a name for a specific type of whale, but historically, that specific type of whale named grumpus became the term that was used for a much wider variety of whales, including orcas. So to be technical, grumpus is another name for orca, but it's more accurately the name of grumpus, which is another type of whale. So in this episode, I'm telling a story about encountering the noble orcas in the Gulf Islands of BC here while kayaking with my dear and beloved partner and some friends of mine. But since then, so there's kind of like a part of the story I wanted to tell, but I couldn't tell because it was the wrong time, which is, do you mind picking up those drumsticks and doing a drum roll for me?
Yeah, sure. That's why we have the drumsticks here and the drum. Yeah, of course.
And you're quite talented at it. Okay, so...
You know, I'll do this all day. I'll just keep rolling the drums. Take your time. It's no pressure.
My girlfriend and I are having a baby. So hooray for me. You can...
Yay!
Thank you, everyone. But yeah, it's an element to the story. I'm going to pick up on that after you hear the whole story. We can talk a little more about it. But yeah, it is true.
Shawn's becoming a papa.
I am becoming a papa to a beloved little bundle of...
a human baby, not an orca baby or a dog baby, a human baby.
As far as I know. No, actually, I saw it on ultrasound. It is. I can confirm it is humanoid. It is human or at least humanoid.
You know, I'm going to put it out there. It's a human baby. You're not adopting it from the vet or SPCA or anything like that. So
yeah, I'm willing to lock it in. I saw it on scan. Interesting thing about ultrasounds is you're like seeing a slice of the baby, like, body worlds where they cut up corpses into slices.
Right.
Ultrasound is sending a line of radiation or whatever, sending a line of sonic information that allows them to basically cut a slice of your baby, and you see it moving, but you can also like see its brain, its internal organs and stuff as a result of that. But it's also the first time that you really like see your own child in our society. You see, the first thing you see is like a ham slice of it. Like you see a 2D.
Yeah, when you sent me the first ultrasound image on chat, I was like, oh, this is nice, but I'm kind of confused as to which parts are which. Like this looks like a blob, like a Rorschach. No offense to your baby. Yeah, no, looks like a Rorschach blob. But
I felt like it was the most self-evidently beautiful and cute photograph in the world that required no explanation.
Just send
send it out and get people going, "Aw!" But actually, I sent it out and I got people saying, "What am I looking at?"
For me, it was because I was expecting to see a whole baby, like fetal position on the side, but it was just head.
Yeah, it was a zoom in on the head, and that's what's cute about it. You can see the little like brow ridge and the
right. I'm trying to map the whole baby onto this image of just the head, and I'm like, oh, is that the arm or that an elbow sticking out? Where it's actually just the nose.
So yeah, that cute little ham slice I've been sending around, beautiful little child, makes me proud and emotional.
Blob, but a very cute image of a slice of a baby.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. I've always said that I've wanted to be a parent someday. You can check the tapes all the way back to 2014. And by coincidence, we got to the point where it's widely considered appropriate to start talking about the pregnancy around the time that Papa and Boy on Means TV came out. And I
streaming now on Means TV. I don't think we've said that on the feed yet, but it's out.
It's out, and I gotta say, it's really fun. It's really quite a humorous show. I really enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, speaking as a pure audience member with no bias.
Yeah, turning off the part of my brain that animated it painstakingly over a many-month period.
Yeah, I took some forget pills that just make you forget your entire life for 10 minutes at a time to watch them from the perspective of, and I gotta say, as an audience member, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you can't always feign modesty when something is that good. No, I think it's a really interesting and cool show, and I hope you check it out and enjoy it. And Means TV, it's a worker-owned streaming service. We're contractor members, which means that we are in profit sharing of Means TV, and we have a say in participation in the future of the network. And it's also a pay what you can. So if the $10 a month price tag is too expensive for you, no questions asked, send an email. They will help you get in, and you can set a lower price. And I've talked to people and they're like ashamed to do that. And it's like, I was just like, legit, if you can't afford it, like that's the reason they have that. Like,
yeah,
if you legit can't afford it, no one is turned away for lack of funds to watch Papa and Boy. And that's something I really appreciate and value about Means TV.
Yeah, definitely.
So don't be embarrassed. It's tough times right now, And if that is the case for you, please don't hesitate to ask for access. We want to share it with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I want people to see it. I'm excited for people to see it because we've been working on it for 2 years, and I think it's really good.
So yeah, welcome to the show, everybody. We're going to hop backwards in time now through a little like time portal to a time before I was admitting that I had a baby on the way. And then at the end, we'll hop out of that time portal to the present. And also, this is before Papa and Boy was released on Means TV. It was before gas prices went up again. It was before, what else has happened since then in the last month?
The Queen died.
The Queen, the Queen is still alive during this recording. So if you want to contextualize,
heavy over the whole recording,
just imagine the Queen somewhere in the distance doing
still alive.
Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you to people who donate to our show on Patreon to make it happen. You the real MVP. Hugs, kisses, hearts, etc.
Oh yeah, and remember, you're now supporting Shawn's child, so Shawn's future child thanks you as well. don't know if that's appropriate to say, but I think they would.
I will raise this child in such a way where they have appropriate gratitude.
Good.
All right, here's the portal.
What a beautiful portal. It's shimmering and swirling. All the best things about portals.
More beautiful than I could ever imagine, that's for sure. It almost defies human comprehension, the beauty of this sparkling portal.
Absolutely, yeah.
So here we go. Oh, we're flying the time right now. We're also mentally rewind. All right, do you want to get started on recording this episode about this whale experience I had?
Yeah.
I gotta say, though, before we start, big ups to the Queen for holding on this long. She's really old, and love her, hate her, you gotta admit, she lived a long time.
Yeah, my personal prediction for once the Queen dies is that everyone in the English-speaking world is going to be like, oh, that was so weird that Britain had a queen for so long, and we're now abolishing the monarchy. I think people don't care anymore, and once she dies, there will be a massive wave of anti-monarchy sentiment where Britain will just end it, I bet. We're not going to see a king after this.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Anyway, random
whale
thing to
story,
weigh in
yeah.
on, but yeah, whale story time.
On our mind for some reason. So I had an interesting experience the other day.
Yeah, you just went on a wildlife sightseeing adventure.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, that's one way to characterize it. It definitely wasn't my intention, but it was what ended up happening. I was camping in the Gulf Islands. It's in southern BC near Victoria on this island called Saturna Island. I've got a friend there from high school who I was visiting and a friend in from out of town. So the three of us and our girlfriends, so a total of 6 people, were going on a kayaking adventure around Saturna Island to go berry picking at this place called Thompson Park, which is a nice little place, and there's berries to pick. So we kayaked over there. It took about an hour. It was really cool and fun. Like I haven't been kayaking like that out on the ocean before, but it was pretty cool.
So this is more of a kayaking trip. It wasn't a safari. Like you weren't there with your jungle hat and your binoculars.
It was a kayaking berry picking trip gone wilderness expedition.
Yeah.
So I guess the first thing that's important to understand in the context of this story is that this is the first time that my girlfriend's ever been kayaking out on the ocean. And the reason for that is because since she was a child, she has had an enormous fear of whales approaching her in the water, which prevented her and her family from going kayaking when she was young. And her entire life, she's been told by her parents, and this is what anyone would tell someone who has this fear, that's not going to happen. Whales don't approach kayakers like that. You will maybe see them from afar if you're lucky. Like that's a rare and magical thing, but they're never going to be really close to you. That like almost never happens. Like it's not something you have to worry about. And I told this to her as well when we were talking about doing this kayaking journey. And it came up, oh, I'm worried about the whales. And I'm like, oh, it's silly. Don't be worried about the whales. It's cute, but no, it's never going to happen. And then the other thing to understand, I guess, is that when we got off our kayaks to go berry picking and then beach mounted back, our paddles accidentally got switched with Oliver and his girlfriend. Shout out to Oliver, who's in the episode I Would Never Do Butt Gun, which you can find in the Patreon archive with us. Funny guy, a longtime friend of mine. And we had longer paddles than them because we're taller than them. So we're kayaking back with shorter paddles. So we were paddling like significantly slower than everyone else, and we got separated from the pack.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going around this ridge. This is in the Salish Sea on the southeast side of Saturna Island, something like that. We're going around this rocky ridge, and we see up ahead way where the other 2 kayakers are. They're probably a football field or something away from us. There's these whales surfacing and using their blowholes, orca whales, killer whales. And I'm like, whoa, that's cool.
I'm trying to imagine what that would feel like. I've seen some kind of whales before, but it was in a controlled environment. It was like, I can't remember where we were. I was with my parents, I think.
The aquarium type thing, or like a boat, or whale watching tour?
A boat. It's all pretty vague in my memory right now. Definitely not like just stumbling upon whales, not even with a boat in between you, but just like, I guess a kayak is a type of boat, but like a big tourist boat. It's a very controlled experience where you're expecting it to happen because they told you it would.
Yeah, so these orca, they're sticking their head out of the water, using their blowholes, they're breathing in. They're going in and out over by the other kayakers. And so my girlfriend is like, Shawn, this is my fear. Like, this is my nightmare that I told you about. And I was like, it's okay. Like, I'm just like, don't worry. We're totally safe. Later found out there's never been any instance of wild orcas killing someone. Although orcas in captivity have sometimes badly hurt or killed their trainers, because when they're kept in captivity, they're in like way too small an area for them. Since this happened, I've done a little bit of research about orcas, so I'll mix in some of my knowledge. Like the resident orca of the Salish Sea, there's about 70, 75 of them at this point. They travel this huge area back and forth from like Vancouver down into Washington through all these different islands, and it's like their territory. They feed on fish. And there's actually orca all around the world. All the different oceans of the world, all the different seas of the world have orca. They're a global species. But
I guess they're big enough to... And if you live in the ocean and you can kind of... It makes sense that they got around, is what I'm saying.
There's other orca that are transient orca, and transient orca have like a different diet. They'll eat things like seals. I read an article, it was like a New Scientist article about how orca evolution has been shaped by orca culture. It's thought that there's subspecies between these different orca populations, and the subspecies were shaped in part by the decisions that they made. They're very intelligent creatures, and they're like in population decline all around the world, a big part because of the loud noises of boats negatively affecting them and their echolocation. Lack of supplies of fish to eat and other food sources. They get emaciated and sometimes starve. And also sometimes they're brought into captivity where they don't tend to last as long. In the wild, they can live to be over 100, but in captivity, they usually die before the age of 50, sometimes by suicide. Which, I mean, anyone who is kept in a really small room can relate to that, I guess.
Even just imagining being kept in a small room, seen a movie where someone was kept in a small room, I feel like, oh yeah, that would suck. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
like
you don't
that.
have to have experience of being kept in a small room to relate to the plight of the orcas.
But yeah, so they don't tend to attack people unless they're in captivity, which makes sense because you could just swim away. You got the whole ocean there. People, like, we're not really that dangerous unless we're like pointing like whale guns at them and stuff.
They're definitely really intelligent and social creatures. They're structured. The resident orcas are structured culturally around matrilineal lines where everyone lives with their mother their entire lives or their grandmother. So the pods are split up around grandmothers. And there was a grandmother that died that was watched, that was like monitored in the Salish Sea until like, I think 2006. Around that time, they died at the age of like 105 or something like that. This great grandmother of multiple generations. Mm-hmm. So there'll be like 4 generations of orca that travel together as a big group and all talk to each other. And then they split up into like hunting pods and stuff or hunting groups, but they all generally hang out in these matrilineal pods. They're playful. Like they'll sometimes surface up and swim alongside boats and stuff.
Like
and
in Free Willy where the kid and he jumps over the kid and he holds up his hand and...
Yeah, I don't know if that's ever happened, but...
I guess that's probably more of a training whale sad story thing. I'm pretty sure there's like a big sad story about the actual whale from Free Willy. Anyway.
In nature, wild orcas will sometimes, like, they'll do breaches in front of where there's people. So, like, breaches are where they shoot out of the water and then splash back down. It's like the orca equivalent of a cannonball. Except they jump out of the water and back in all in one move. Or they'll like swim alongside paddle boarders and like swim underneath them and stuff without ever touching their board. I saw a bunch of videos of like different orca playing, watching behaviors, but they seem interested in people. It's not really clear what their internal world is.
Right.
Oh yeah, another thing, there's this whale named Lolita who is I think 56 or 60, something like that. She's been in captivity almost her entire life. She was taken as a child from the Salish Sea, and she's at like a Miami Sea World or something like that. I don't think it's Sea World, it's something else. She's in Miami, and her mother is still alive in the Salish Sea. So there's like this political movement to free her and return her to her family, which is something that I intuitively support. But imagine being in captivity for 50 years and then like they let you go home again, and like your mom is there.
Yeah.
And she's like 90 or something.
It's pretty beautiful.
Obviously, the worry is that she'll tell them what we did. And then all the orca will know. The whole pod will actually like know about SeaWorld.
Yeah, they'll spread the word to all the orcas. And then they'll finally... If all that had happened before the other day, you could have been the first attack. Like they're just
Right,
like,
yeah, that was the moment. When the orca we saw, they had gotten word about SeaWorld.
they're planning.
They watched Blackfish, and they're just fucking pissed.
We're gonna start picking these fuckers off.
So yeah, we're kayaking with 2 short paddles, way away from our friends. First time kayaking on the open sea for both of us. She's starting to get panic, like her nightmare is coming true. Her implausible nightmare is coming true. And at first I'm like, it's okay. They're just going to swim over there. Like, don't worry about it. Like, they're not going to come towards us. And she's like, Shawn, they're coming right towards us. Like, they're coming directly for us. And it's true. There's definitely like 2 different fins coming towards us. We found out later from our friends ahead that there'd been 3. There was a small one, a medium-sized large one, and a really big one. Small one being like really young. Based on my research, it's probably this specific orca named Tofino that was born in 2019. Like, they're all monitored. There's only like 70 of them. So the marine scientists have named them all. They have names and numbers. They know which pod they're in. And the big one is probably this guy named Blackberry that was born in 1991. But so they're coming towards us. So like, and I'm trying to calm her down and just like let her know everything's going to be okay. But I also I'm starting to feel a little ambiguous about my own reassurances. Like, it's really weird. Like, it's kind of frightening. So we decide that we're going to paddle over to, there's like this rock face that we can hold on to this rocky side and just get as close to the wall as possible, put up the kayak against the wall, hold on, and they'll go by us and minimize any risk that they, I don't know, come up to us or something. Like,
Right.
You're not thinking rationally about what the possibilities are. It was a magical experience, but it was also like a kind of a traumatizing experience, because the thing about this dorsal fin, it sticks 6 feet out of the water. I imagine the maximum height of a dorsal fin, maybe 3 feet, 4 feet for the largest.
Yeah, once you hit 4 feet, you're getting a pretty big fin there.
And so we have this orca fin coming towards us that is towering above us. We're sitting in a kayak, so we're about maybe 3 feet off the water level. And it's towering above us, heading towards us. And my mind is mentally filling in an orca that's 30 or 40 feet long, like the biggest orca imaginable. Like, it was breaking my model for what an orca should look like. And I found out later that male orcas have sort of disproportionately big fins. They have like really tall fins. And that this, I said at the time that it was probably around 5 feet. I learned from, if this is Blackberry, which I think it was, then it's a 6-foot fin. So this thing's coming towards us, and like, there's this ambiguous, like, it's magical, it's horrifying. I'm thinking like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, how would you defend yourself if it like hit your kayak or whatever? And like, at sea, I'm not very powerful. Like, these are creatures that are optimized for the sea. They control the sea. They can go up and down underwater. They can stay underwater forever. They can come up to the surface. They can jump out of the water. Incredibly powerful, enormous megafauna with like dog-like biting mouths. So they're the master of the sea. We're first-time kayakers with too short a paddle. So yeah, my reassurances went from like, orcas will never approach us kayaking, to those orcas will stay far away, to those orcas aren't coming towards us, to orcas are coming towards us, but it's safe. To I'm not sure if it's safe, but if we go over here, it maximizes our safeness. And
Right. Yeah, the orcas are just proving you wrong at every turn.
Someone else was saying, Chak, who we were kayaking with, he said they can stay underwater for a really, really long time. So if they're at the surface they want to be, that they were probably looking at us and taking some interest in us as a group of people.
Right.
They also see with both vision and echolocation. So they can see things like the heartbeats of other creatures underwater by picking up those vibrations or by sending clicks and getting them back.
Right.
But they can also see with their eyes. So I wonder what they see. I know that if we're swimming underwater, dolphins, whales, they can get a pretty detailed idea of what you look like, even like your organs, how much fat is on your body and stuff like that, because of the way different sound waves come back at different rates. But I'm not sure how that translates to being in a kayak. But I assume that we have some impact in the way the kayak registers, like they could pick up that there's people in it.
Right.
And also like I'm not sure what their memory is of humans over time. You know what I mean? Like, kayak safe, boats not kind of thing, or this type of boat safe, this type of boat not kind of thing.
Right.
Or if that's passed down through generations, because they're very smart and have culture. A lot of that I don't know the details of. But so yeah, we pull over to the rock side, and there's a bunch of cool starfish there, by the way. So that was a nice plus. And yeah, adrenaline really pumping. And it really continued as we moved. They changed their trajectory to come more and more towards us. And at the final moment we saw them, the big one, its fin out 5 or 6 feet out of the water, towering above us, maybe 10, 12 feet away max. Like, this is really, really close.
Wow.
And it's just unthinkably big. Breaking my model of what orcas are, breaking my model on what orcas should do. My girlfriend's freaking out because her childhood phobia is coming true. And I've got a kayaking whistle in my mouth that I put in because I learned the nautical signal for distress. And I'm like, okay, well, if they somehow start fucking with us, or like really, like, if this gets any worse than where it's at right now, I'm going to start using this whistle to try to communicate with other people. But their fins were out entirely. They're looking at us as they go by us. And then they went underwater and didn't come back out. And yeah, it was like very exhilarating. And at first it was frightening. And then after, when it was over, it was kind of like, see, I told you you'd be okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how is she feeling about it now?
Yeah, like immediately after it happened, she was definitely freaked out, and she was still afraid that they were going to like come back. They
Right.
went underwater and we can't see them, but that doesn't mean they're not there, which is true.
They're going to burst out like Jaws and try and eat your shit.
And they can hold their breath for a long time. They might have just went straight down and just stopped there and just looked at us and just watched us move away.
Right.
Like, it's totally within their powers and capabilities. And we're also really tired by this point. Like, this is a pretty big kayaking journey. Like, I'm still sore. This was 2 days ago. Like, I'm still sore in my shoulders and back and stuff. But yeah, we go back and meet up with the other people, and they're like, wow, that was so cool. And we're like, yeah, cool. But actually, overall, I do think that her fear of this has been defeated. Like, this isn't going to make her less likely to go kayaking in the future. Especially like after it happened, you keep on thinking about it. And I realized like part of the reason I kept thinking about it is because it was kind of traumatic. And like, I just want to underline again, this 6-foot dorsal fin, found out it's a 22-foot whale. But I thought it was a 30-foot whale probably. Either way, it's a bus. You know, you have this undersea bus speeding towards you, the rhino of the sea. You have no capacity to control yourself beyond, like, we're struggling to kayak before we're being chased, you know? Like,
Right.
we're not pro kayakers by any means.
Yeah, that's such a specific... I don't think I've ever considered being on a kayak and having whales come at you. Maybe that's something kayakers think about a lot. Apparently, it's big enough of a thing that it's been your girlfriend's greatest kayaking fear for her whole
When she was a
life.
child, she's like, I'm not going on the ocean. I'll kayak in rivers, but I will not kayak in the ocean
Right, because of whales.
because of the whales.
Yeah, maybe if I've never been kayaking, so maybe I would have considered it more then. But yeah, I've always thought of whales and dolphins as friendly, sharks as potentially dangerous. So that's the extent of my knowledge. Like, if this had happened to me, I would have been like, maybe safe. But yeah, definitely like when they're coming at you and like, did you see the fin first and then did you know it was an orca immediately? Because when I see a fin, my first thought would be shark.
Yeah, we knew it was an orca when it was still far away. We were separated from the other kayakers, and it sort of went by them first. And so we were looking at them and we saw it happening there, although it was further away from them than it was from us. And actually, they turned around to like continue watching it and like started going towards it a little bit to like
Right.
keep watching it happen. But then when we went up to the rock face, it hit us. It was like we disappeared. So from their point of view, it was like the orcas are heading right towards us and we disappear and the orca disappear in the same place. But everyone had been told their whole lives, orcas won't fuck with you. It's going to be safe, yada, yada. So they didn't, like, apart from maybe like a joking kind of like, oh, they're going to eat them or whatever, you know, that there was no real fear from the other kayakers. But also they didn't get as close as we did. But yeah, afterwards, like, I've done a bunch of reading on orcas. And like, even at the time, there's part of me that was like worried and like concerned about keeping my girlfriend safe and comfortable, more than thinking that we were in imminent danger. But it also occurred to me of like, What if it knocks over our kayak or what? Like being in the water this far away from our place, even if the orca's not fucking with us, is like not a good scene. But yeah, it was sort of magical in the way of like, it's so big and you don't think about orcas being out there doing their thing. Like, it's the most dinosaur-like experience I've ever had. It's like, I mean, I've seen giraffes in captivity. I've seen an elephant in captivity, and it's kind of cool in a way. But like, I've never had an elephant come at me unexpectedly when I didn't expect to see an elephant at all. Let alone one with like smooth skin that sees by echolocation, that can tell my body fat percentage by clicking at me. I wish it was easy for me to convey, like you're getting approached by a whale and you realize that the fin is a 40% bigger than you thought fins could get. Just think about this. Okay, sit cross-legged on your floor and look at something that's 6 feet tall. Imagine that next to you, and it's the peak, it's the tip of a creature that you can't see.
Right.
That's the thing that replays in my head when I think about this, is like this scale fucking, this like the orca map being destroyed, while I'm also playing the role of everything is going to be okay, like supportive partner. But we'll go kayaking on the sea again. We're less afraid of orcas now, having done more research. It seems like they're good at respecting boundaries in general. Like, unless orcas suddenly have a change of temperament or culture towards humans, if you are approached by an orca, you are safe. Like, that is generally true.
That's your takeaway.
Yeah,
so
from
far.
the research that I've done.
Yeah.
But definitely a memorable life experience I didn't expect to have. Like, I didn't go out to this island to be like, time to meet an unthinkably large megafauna and its habitat where I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, even if it's one of the nicest megafauna out there, it's still big enough to crush you if it wanted to. Like,
yeah, or just grab you and pull you down. Be like, hey, come check out where we live.
yeah, just completely like bash into the side of your kayak and try to eat you.
If it so chose. But the resident orca of the Salish Sea eat fish. They don't eat mammals. I mean, I knew it wasn't going to eat us. I didn't think it was going to eat us. I was pretty confident it wasn't going to try to eat us.
Yeah, I've never heard of orcas eating people, but it's still, if they're big, it's a possibility. I don't know.
Yeah, they're crazy as fuck. And from the research I've done, I believe strongly, I really do think that the people who are concerned about their well-being are right. They shouldn't be held in captivity. They belong in the ocean. They belong in an environment that's big enough for them. But also, the orca and the ocean need to be protected also from pollution, really critically from their food sources being taken away by humans or destroyed.
Yeah, like overfishing or the pollution killing off the fish that they would, yeah.
Yeah, like these are incredible creatures that, like, seeing a picture, having a cartoon idea of a killer whale in my head did not prepare me for at all. And like, I feel really strongly, even though I got a little bit scared, that it was primarily like a magical, incredible experience, that like this enormous, intelligent creature that sees in ways that I can only barely imagine, that has social structures that I can only barely imagine, has culture I can only barely imagine, recognized me and I recognized it. And there's something so profound about that. Like, the more I've reflected on it, the less scary it seemed. And the more I felt like we really need to, on our really big list of priorities, include the well-being of like marine creatures, but in particular, our mammalian cousins. I don't know, this experience really opened my eyes to that indirectly as a result of trying to understand what the motivations of an enormous creature that swam towards me was doing. And I still don't fully understand the motivations. My kind of preferred narrative is that it was excited to see us.
Right.
That it wanted to look at people that didn't have a motor. It wanted to like get a vibe of like our nervous systems.
I was thinking almost of like, you're walking down the street and like you see a squirrel. Like, maybe you just walk past and you don't care. Maybe sometimes you stop and look at it. You even want to walk a bit closer, see what it's doing up there in the tree. That's kind of how I imagine them seeing humans. They're like, oh, there's humans up there again. And it's kind of, let's take a look. Let's approach a little bit. Oh, I don't want to scare them. But
And it's with a 2.5-year-old.
The little one that you didn't see. Yeah.
Yeah, Tofino. which would also be able to see us.
Yeah, you're definitely more likely to stop to look at a squirrel if you got a little kid with you.
Yeah. And that seems really wholesome and nice. And like, that seems magical and not at all scary. Like, we happened to be going at this time that there were no ferries going by, there were no motorboats. So they were coming up to the surface to look around, and they saw humans that are like the least threatening type of humans they know. And they're like, hey, little one, let's go check these things out. You can get a good look at them. Click at them.
Right.
Look at the shape of their nervous systems. I don't know if it works through a kayak or not. I'd like to think it does, though. I want to be recognized that.
Does it work through the, like, going out of the water into air and then back?
I know echolocation works in bats out of water, but I don't know about traversing the water barrier. I know that orcas' eyes work in and out of water both.
Right.
But I don't know if their echolocation does. But for the sake of my own narrative, I choose to believe that they could see us entirely. That they could see us profoundly in a whale-like way that I can only barely understand. And they wanted to share that with their little child, trying to feed their baby information about the world so it can survive to be 100, like their grandma did. So yeah, most people don't get that close to orcas. The legal guidelines are that you aren't supposed to approach them within 400 meters or something like that. And if you're on a motorized boat and one comes closer to within 300 meters of you, you're supposed to turn off the boat and just wait for them to pass. So yeah, it's like kind of a rare thing. But I also read a headline that the amount of orca sightings was really up in 2021 compared to previous years for a while. So I'm not sure why that would be. Maybe it's connected to whatever changed at sea that's also helping the Great Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef also got its first improvement in a long time recently during the pandemic.
Yeah, I was going to mention the pandemic. Like, maybe there was fewer boats out there, so they were just near the surface more.
Maybe it's cruise ships. Less cruise ships going around the last couple of years, giving the ocean a fighting chance. Oh, fuck cruise ships, man.
Yeah.
If having a single cruise ship at all fucks with my enormous sea dog friends, the 21-foot, 6-foot dorsal bus that came charging at me and my girlfriend the other day, if having even a single cruise ship anywhere in the world fucks with these beautiful, enormous creatures, my big boy, fuck them, man. Old people have tons of shit to do. We don't need to put them on fucking cruise ships, dumping shit out in the middle of the ocean, fucking scaring all the creatures and fucking destroying the planet.
Yeah, I feel like at the very least there's got to be massive regulations on what they're allowed to do. Because, yeah, you hear fucked up shit about cruise ships like all the time, fucking up the ocean constantly so people can stay in a hotel on the water.
Yeah, fuck that, man. Cruise ships are like a good aesthetic target for ire too, because they're like, say, like out of the reach of most people. They're luxurious. Even people who do go on cruise ships or work on cruise ships have ambiguous feelings about them. They are like an extreme symbol of like societal excess. Like, we're going to run a hotel on diesel and parade it around the world at great environmental cost. And it's going to be like ground zero of all future pandemics. We don't need that shit. What we do need is whales.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know, then turning to the audience now, do you know anything about orcas? Do you know anything about killer whales? Have you seen one? Feel free to post in the comments on Patreon and stuff and let us know. Maybe did we get any facts wrong? Do you know about the echolocation stuff? Emphatically encourage any and all feedback related to this orca experience based on your knowledge.
The closest thing I guess I've ever had to a wildlife encounter was I saw a coyote a few times at the park near my house like 2 years ago. But it freaked me out. I thought it was like a big dog at first because it was nighttime. And so I was just like walking away from it. And then it started like walking after me, not gaining on me, but just in my direction, continuing to come at me. And I kept like looking back and I was like, I think that's not a dog. I think that's a coyote. So I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember if you were supposed to like yell and stuff, which you are with coyotes. I think I was thinking of bears more so, but I just like stood there and looked at it for like a minute, and then it just like turned around and walked the other direction, stopped coming towards me. It was pretty freaky, especially when I realized it was like kind of following me. And this was before all the coyote attack stuff in Stanley Park. Like, I wasn't thinking about coyotes or that they might be around or anything. That happened after the pandemic started, and this was before the pandemic. But yeah, that's it. That's my whole story. It was less intense, less magical, but a light like moment of that kind of wild card of an animal, of like wildlife in your space or whatever.
If you had read as much about coyotes as I read about orcas, you could have definitely fleshed out that story to similar length.
Right. Yeah.
The
Like
coyotes are really interesting, I assume.
I did look at coyote sightings around Vancouver at the time, and there wasn't any in the area right where I had saw it, so I reported it to the thing that I saw a coyote there. But yeah, they kind of roam around the greater Vancouver area. I did figure that out, and it just said if you see them, don't approach them. If they approach you, make yourself big and scream at them, and they'll run away. And definitely don't feed them.
Yeah, at the beginning of the pandemic, there was an issue with coyote attacks at Stanley Park, which is like our big sort of like island park at the middle of the city, or like the peak of the city.
Yeah.
And it was, I guess, like the changes of people's behavior during the pandemic made coyotes less afraid to come down from the mountains over the bridge and into the park. And they took up residence there. And then people had been feeding them. And when they stopped getting fed, they started attacking people. Someone was bit. They tried to like grab some baby or something, or a toddler.
Yeah, it was a child, toddler in the parking lot of the aquarium. So not even like out on the paths. I think that like really freaked people out, that they were like, a parking lot is like supposed to be so separate from the
Parking lot is supposed to be the safest place for a child.
yeah, or at least like safe from coyotes. And yeah, a bunch of people got attacked. There was like a dozen attacks or something, a bunch of attacks. And then they decided they were going to do a culling and thought they were going to kill like 30 or 40 or something, but they only ended up killing single digits. It was really low. But it seemed to have worked in turn. Like I haven't noticed any more coyote attack stories.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me. I was thinking about orca and how would people react if the orca turned on us? If Lolita comes back from Miami SeaWorld, or whatever the actual thing is, and Lolita tells them in their special click language that we don't understand, those little monkeys that we love so much that dance for us, the little monkeys on boats that we treasure so much and show to our young in a peaceful way. They kept me in a cage and tortured me for 50 years, guys. They made me dance around for fish. And then they decide to turn on us. They start grabbing random kayakers.
I think orca have been released into the past before, haven't they? I'm trying to reassure myself that this isn't going to happen. But
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the main reason it won't happen is because I think culturally they don't believe in revenge. That's just a personal belief of mine. I think they believe in benevolence.
right.
I do kind of think that the orca love us. Like they probably love us too much, like a dog, you know? Orcas are like our friends in the sea. Like no matter what we do to them, they'll keep on coming back and doing flips for us. That's more the vibe I imagine for them. I think it's a different type of tragic story, you know?
They won't cancel us even though we deserve to be canceled.
So if that happened, I don't think it will, but if that happened, I was thinking about how people would react. And I was like, it might be another 10 years where even if the orcas started attacking us, we would still protect them. We would be benevolent about it. We might already be there now, like culturally. Pretty much any time in history, if orcas started attacking humans en masse, humans would react by trying to destroy all of them. But we might now actually be at a time where if they started turning on us, we'd be like, we won't swim there. It's cool. We love you.
Right.
You're our big friends.
Yeah, definitely at least parts of the ocean and the world and just think I couldn't account for the decisions of every government around the world and how they'd react to a global orca attack on all shores. But I just mean like
shit, that'd be crazy. There's orca all around the world too. I mean, they all at once.
Coordinated global attack. Yeah.
Revenge for Miami SeaWorld. Justice for Lolita. Now the day of reckoning is upon us. All corners of the planet, every ocean in the world, the orcas at once. No, it's not going to happen. It's up to us humans to be these righteous orca defending orcas. We should start killing people randomly in the oceans of everywhere. Just kidding.
Everywhere there are orcas.
Murder is always wrong.
Maybe we can train them to attack yachts.
That'd be sick, yeah.
Or just ask them. I don't know. Train them sounds so hierarchical, but hopefully if they do revolt, they decide themselves to only attack yachts.
Yeah, domesticated killer whales for class war. just make it totally infeasible to have cruises or yachts anymore, because the orca know that if they bring back evidence of industrial sabotage, that they'll be rewarded handsomely in fish. Orca are part of the proletariat for sure. They're definitely not bourgeoisie. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they transcend classes, human classes anyway.
Killer whales never tried to charge me rent before.
Also, despite their name, not killing people.
In wild, they don't kill people, and we just slander them with this horrible name, giving children irrational fears about kayaking in the ocean.
Did your girlfriend ever see Free Willy? I feel like after I saw Free Willy, I was not afraid of orcas. Like, they're our friends. They become friends with children who want to help them, and that's kind of how they interact with society.
Yeah, we gotta watch it. We're gonna watch that movie like tonight. We're still getting over this orca thing. This orca thing is still the big incident of the last few days.
Right.
It's a good time to dive back into that old classic. I don't think I've seen it since I was maybe 4 or 5 years old.
It wasn't one I watched obsessively, but I'm sure I've seen it at least 5 or 6 times.
No, I think so too. Yeah, no, that's a 90s movie about how it's good to let the orcas out of the cages and send them home.
Yeah, exactly.
Make Willy free.
Yeah, that's the name of the movie.
Well, I'll tell you firsthand, I saw Free Willy out in the wild. Scary as fuck.
When it started approaching you, instead of going to the wall, you should have just held your hand up. It would have jumped over you. Like, just this magical moment. That's the main thing I know about whales. They like to make magical or orca whales jumping over people who raise their hands up when they're swimming at them.
That's an interesting, it's funny. It's like there's only 2 options for what happened that day. Either it was a scary wildlife encounter, or it was a magical wildlife encounter. Ooh, sparkle noises, a magic wand, Harry Potter. Like, there's no, why don't we have another language to discuss the magic isn't real. This is something even better than magic. It's something real. It actually happened. Ooh, it's magical. That's not magical. It's biological.
Look, and to be fair, in Harry Potter, I'm pretty sure he was also terrified for parts of it. It was magical, but it's also scary.
Just because something's magical doesn't mean it's not scary.
Harry Potter's the perfect example.
But it's funny. A lot of people have said magical.
Well, yeah, just when you hear it, it sounds magical. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that's what would be on the ad copy if you were selling this experience to people. A magical orca kayaking experience.
Right, yeah. Like if you were doing orca kayaking tours, magical would be, for sure. Yeah. And that's infected the way that we all think about it so much that we just repeat that. Or maybe it comes from before. Maybe it's since time immemorial, when canoers off the coast saw orca, they would turn and then speak in Proto-Indo-European or whatever other language. Like, whoa, magical. They jumped out of the water. Cool.
Yeah, it would be, I think, a peak experience, like no matter what. I don't know if they'd use the association with magic specifically. I think even the word magical, it kind of has a different meaning from magic in a way. It's almost like Disney magic is different than like doing magic. There's an overlap because like Disney movies have magic in them a lot of the times, but there's like this other meaning of magical that doesn't really mean anything supernatural. It just means like awe-inspiring.
I think that's a great character, is like the atheist who, the terse like anti-theist.
That was not a magical experience. That was a completely rational, explicable, if uncommon, but
let's explain
certainly
the
not magical
sub-characteristics, which are perfectly rational, that can explain the emergent outcome of this experience that's being called quote-unquote magical, which I scoff at.
Even your other words you're throwing out there, enchanting as a synonym. Oh yeah, who's being enchanted and what enchantment is being cast?
So is that a witch, a wizard? Is it somehow involved? Do we believe in is astrology real now? It's not. Whales are mammals. They are our cousins going back millions of years. We've got a genetic connection to them, shared relatives in history. They speak in ways that we find fascinating. They act in ways that are incomprehensible to us, and they're enormous. I think that is sufficient to explain the feeling that I had. We don't need to invoke magic, wands, wizards. No, but actually, it was such a magical experience. I now believe in all magic because I saw magic is real.
Cool. Do you want to draw some sigils and mark them with our blood and then burn them in a ritual to save the oceans?
Yeah, I do.
Cool.
I actually do feel like burning a sigil cast in blood to protect the oceans and, in particular, the beautiful orca whales around the world.
Probably couldn't hurt.
I don't know what kind of magic that is or who. I don't know what. It sounds good, though, but.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it is either. I think people, I imagine people in California doing it. It's like hippie magic.
Oh, really?
I know it is a thing. Like, I've heard of people talking about drawing sigils, and I've heard people talk about blood or cum. You could cum on the sigil. I think there was something powerful, like blood or cum.
I might just skip that part personally and just use a pen.
Yeah, I think to draw the sigil, you definitely want to use a pen. That would be a lot of blood, and I don't think you can draw with cum, but...
Yeah, maybe an artist more talented than I could, but... So that's your homework for everyone this week. Do some California whale magic, but don't use the bodily fluids. That just, or maybe only a little bit, or like maybe spit. Maybe spit's good enough. Personally, I'm going to do some California whale magic tonight.
Cool, yeah.
And watch Free Willy.
No, I'm worried that the practice of sigil drawing has a more deeper history and some tradition that I'm ignoring or something. So just, if that's the case, I apologize too. I'm just ignorant about. I heard it from some hippies sometime, and that's, if they ruined it, then blame them and not me. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's hop through this time portal to the future now that we're done having this original conversation back in, August? Yeah, or July? I think August.
Yeah, it's currently, I think, August in this past timeline. Let's do it. Let's hop back to the future. I wonder what things we'll learn.
So here we are back in October 2022, where
where we started and finished this little journey. I gotta say, I was so wrong about the Queen in that past timeline.
Yeah, I think you were right in a more important way than the way that you were wrong, though, in that I don't see the monarchy thing really keeping its same sentiment in the future, but I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, maybe the big outpouring of pro-monarchy stuff was like its last hurrah. It was kind of just paying respect to this queen that people love for some reason. I don't really get it, but...
I've got this guy on Facebook.
I know Olivia Colman played her, but it doesn't mean she's that great of a queen or anything.
I know this random guy on Facebook who's like a monarchist, and I saw him post on a like BBC article about King Charles. Each word in the sentence starting with a capital, God save the king, period. Or no, sorry. I've seen him say that too, but the actual thing was, long live the king. That's when I was like, holy shit. Long live the king with capital letters for each of them, period at the end. It's totally sincere. It's just a really interesting thing to read as a
2022 human being.
Yeah, normal person.
In a liberal democracy. It is weird.
So a big thing about this whole encounter was, I know that through echolocation, dolphins can see pregnancy. They tend to favor women who are pregnant over other women or other men. They can tell through their echolocation that there's more than one heartbeat. And they probably even have some sense, and this is projection, of like cuteness. Like they have an idea of taking care of their own young. This is some like deep evolutionary guess on my part. I'm not far from an expert, but I think cuteness is probably, at the very least among mammals, it's probably a common thing where you have these complex social networks. I like the idea that a whale seeing a human baby thinks it's cute, and they probably get the chance to see human babies more with pregnant women than women who are like carrying babies in the ocean for some reason.
Right. Yeah. It is interesting. I think if they have the same reaction to a human baby that we do to like a baby dog or a baby cat or any animal baby, really.
Yeah. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, unless they can't, like whatever registers for them as cute doesn't come through. Like if it's just a heartbeat, maybe it's not enough for them to know that it's cute. I don't know though, but
Yeah, maybe they see it more like a fish.
yeah, like we don't see baby fish and think they're cute. Although a baby orca is cute,
Oh, yeah. And even baby fish kind of cute. But
especially if they're beside a bigger adult fish and you're like, oh, those ones are the babies. They're so small. That's cute.
and if they have big eyes in relation to their
yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cute shit. Cute as fuck, bro. So yeah, we're on kayaks. So I'm not sure the strength of echolocation breaking through the water barrier. I think it could see through plastic, but I'm not sure that it could see through plastic into air or to what degree. But the fact that there was a baby orca with it too, it's like really my preferred theory is that they were showing a baby human,
Right.
and that is just the cutest idea in the world. It's my preferred.
It's a nice thought.
It is technically possible that we misidentified these as part of J-Pod and they were actually transient orcas and they were coming up to us because they thought it was a possibility that we were edible mammals like seals, and that they were coming up to us actually because they were considering eating us.
Right.
But I don't prefer that one.
Yeah, it's not as cute.
So yeah, it's probably our preferred story. That's maybe, that's the kind of thing you could tell your kid when they're older. I've never done parenting before, but like, oh, we saw an orca when your mom was pregnant with you and they brought an orca baby to see you. Isn't that cool? That kind of thing. Like, I feel like a kid would be into that, even if it's only half true or potentially true.
Right.
I don't know. Is that ethical? I don't want to tell my kid Santa Claus exists just because I want to get credit for anything I do for them instead of giving it to this weird ass man.
I think you could just caveat it with, we don't know for sure, but we think maybe they were bringing the baby. You can.
So yeah, you'd argue for a high level of technical precision in the truthfulness of claims made to children.
Well, yeah, kind of. But I feel like if you say we don't know for sure in front of something and then say it really cool to a kid, I don't think they're absorbing that in that way. Like maybe later, or I think it's good. Yeah, I don't think it'll take the punch out of it. Is what I'm saying.
Right.
I think the kid will.
There's no
love it.
need to lie or exaggerate because it's still a cool story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just the possibility that this is true is a cool thing.
Yeah, and similarly with Santa Claus, it's a cool enough story that everyone participates in this big ritual together where they give children gifts. I don't know. I never really believed in Santa Claus, but it was always still magical for me to get the things I wanted after having to wait for a long time.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember believing or not believing in Santa, really.
I remember getting a whisper. I can even place it. So my grandmother ran a daycare. I must have been around kindergarten age or a little before. And I only had even a faint idea of Santa Claus. I didn't never really believed in Santa, but the older kids were asking younger kids, do you believe in Santa? And my little brain put together that they're older and it doesn't make sense to ask that question if Santa's real. Like, you don't have to believe in a real thing. If people are like, do you believe in the mall? It's like, you went to the mall, it exists.
Yeah.
So the question, do you believe in Santa, raised a little critical thought red flag for 5-year-old Shawn. And I was like, I see. And I confronted my mom about it and she admitted it.
Just having the weirdest thought right now of going up to this 5-year-old version of you and being like, do you believe in love, little Shawnee? Is love real? Just get those wheels turning, turn them into a love nihilist.
Right. No, that might work. I mean, if that does. I mean, I think that's a big theme of media too, though. Like Santa Claus media, there's always like this magic, Santa is real, like that sort of stuff. It's always tied into it. So we're not really good at keeping the secret from kids overall. I also remember, I don't want to just brag about being a skeptical thinker, but I remember the cookies being nibbled and stuff. I remember just thinking like, this would be so easy to fake.
Right.
Like it's not hard to find someone who will nibble cookies. Like I would do it if I was asked,
Oh, I remember too, we would leave out a beer for Santa because I think my parents thought it was funny, but also probably like my dad more wanted to drink a beer after we all went to bed than drink milk. So it was like, yeah, Santa gets lots of milk. You'd rather have a beer.
Right, yeah. It is crazy to think about a man drinking that many cups of milk in one night. That's a lot of milk. And it's on the main question of raising a kid and doing it right. But I think it is actually kind of an instructive, interesting area to think about, like, what sort of mythology do you want to participate in with a child that misleads? Like, I generally think, like, I would like to cultivate a relationship with my kid that's like earned trust, and it just seems in conflict with that, like, to play games where you're like lying just as a joke or for fun or to make something magical or whatever. It just sort of like establishes this backdrop as like these, like, I don't want to play games with my kid's mind like that. I'd rather just them know that they can ask me questions and I'll tell them as much as I can.
Yeah, I've seen people mostly defend it for the, like, remembering feeling like it was really magical as a child and them enjoying that and them not being very mad at their parents by the time they found out, all combining to be like, it's fine, you should do it. I want to give my kid this magical experience that I had. But I didn't really, again, feel like it was a magical experience. I can see why people want to, but I do think it's probably better to not.
I remember in grade 2, this girl in my class, Danica. Shout out to Danica, wherever you are, whatever your last name is now. All the kids I went to school with got married. I can't track them down. Shout out to Danica, wherever you are. I remember this in grade 2, telling you that you were wrong and that Santa Claus actually wasn't real. And that you said the proof that Santa Claus was real was that Santa gave your brother a Sega TV for Christmas, but your parents canceled it after 2 months because it was too expensive. So it's proof that Santa and your parents aren't working together because,
Right.
Which is, like, just think about that for a minute.
Very funny.
Telling the kid, oh, we have to cancel Sega TV. I know you really love it. And
I mean, if you think it through, it's weird that Santa gifted, like, he didn't gift you the subscription. He just, like, hooked it up and then was like, your parents have to pay for it. Like, you feel like if it was a gift from Santa, you get free Sega TV from now on. Like, he and Sega have a deal and it's good now.
That's another thing as a kid, too. I remember thinking of just like, Santa is bringing people products. Like, I didn't have this language for it, right? But like, there's commercials on TV for the stuff that Santa is bringing kids. Like, there's some weird, like,
yeah, I think too the massive difference, and like some people are like, oh, Santa got me an Xbox, but then at my house, Santa always gave us like the crappy presents. I think because my parents wanted credit for the good presents. Like, any good present you got, the one, you know, if you got like one expensive present a year, it was like, that was from mom and dad. And then Santa gave you like candy and socks and like maybe a cool little knickknack or something. But like, we got like the good present always said mom and dad on it. They're just, it never really added up. I feel like if you're going to tell your kid Santa is real, you got to do it with like the biggest wink possible so that your kid knows. Like, don't be a good actor about it. Don't be like, oh yeah, like 100% is real and here's explanations. Be like, Santa is real, wink. You know, like that.
Yeah, I like that. It makes like the rigid kind of like materialist atheist in me is satisfied by it being this ritual about lying to your kid in a way that they're supposed to be able to see through. I could see some benefits or some ways to do that right. That sounds kind of wholesome in a way.
Yeah, I feel like the more I think about it, I feel like that's kind of what my parents did, because I don't remember them ever saying he wasn't real. And there was like some pretense of it exist. Like, we got some gifts with Santa on it and stuff and did the cookies and beer thing. But yeah, like, I feel like they couldn't take it seriously. They were just like not contradicting it, but also like, I feel like my dad would be like, yeah, Santa's coming. Like,
oh shit. There's actually one more thing before we wrap up here. We did watch Free Willy. Me and my girlfriend, we watched Free Willy.
Right after the last record, yeah. Out of 10, what do you give the movie?
Interesting. I don't know. The numerical scales are so limiting.
Oh yeah, I don't mean to put you in a corner if you don't like doing that.
I think overall it's like pretty good for like a kid's movie. It has kind of an anti-capitalist message in that there's these like money counting assholes in suits who capture this adult whale and are trying to get the trainers to make it work for profit, even though it's like uncooperative. And that's kind of like one of the big plot points of the movie. And eventually they free the whale while the capitalists are chasing after them, and he jumps over the kid. And there's this amazing moment. I want to use this in something I do in the future in terms of filmmaking. Like, it's so amazing. All the good people in the movie are all together watching the whale escape, and he escapes, and then everyone's like, yeah, and you like see a cut of all of them, and then you see a cut of the capitalist guys, and they're basically like scrunching their hats and like, oh, I hate that whale.
Yeah.
It's amazing filmmaking. So I give full marks to that part. But there's some like weird borderline, like there's an indigenous guy who works at the whale training facility, and when Willie jumps, I totally forgot this, both him and the kids say like a Haida prayer while the whale is jumping.
Right.
And he's actually played by someone who's from another nation, not the Haida nation, from like, he's like, I can't remember actually off the top of my head. And it's like, it's not anti-indigenous racism. But it's like this kind of like liberally like
magical Indian trope territory.
Yeah, there's definitely and I don't know the details on how if people were consulted in production and stuff, but it reads to me as a very outsider take on indigeneity. I'll say, and I was really surprised by that. I completely forgot. So yeah, that part, it didn't age well. It wasn't over the top offensive, but it was kind of like embarrassing. It feels very 1994. And I'd say that we as a couple overall enjoyed our movie watching experience that day. I also, in the earlier recording, you mentioned that the real life Free Willy was freed and it had a sad ending. So I looked that up, and it is true. The real life Free Willy, I think it was called Kiko.
Right.
It was freed into the wild, I think off of Iceland, and it was swimming around Europe. It never reintegrated into any sort of whale pod or the whale pod that it came from. And it died of pneumonia 8 months after being released, which is sad. But before it died, kind of an interesting story, it went up to a beach where there were people swimming, and it swam with them. And like, it was interacting with people, like it really liked being around people. So it was interacting with like just random swimmers on this beach, even let a kid crawl up on its back, which has got to be cool for that kid.
Yeah.
But the people who were in charge of reintegrating Kiko into the wild were not happy about that and figured out ways to prevent it from happening again. But overall, the sort of stunt to free it, which was done in partnership with the Warner Brothers or whatever company, it was criticized for a couple reasons, one of which is that, yeah, it didn't work. Another one, people were chasing this sentimental idea of freeing Willie, but there's actually a qualitative difference between Kiko and Willie. In the movie, Willie is captured as an adult and hates being in captivity and never cooperates, whereas Kiko is one of the most cooperative whales of all time, which is why it was picked as the star for the movie. It was captured as a child and was fully sort of like domesticated in its relationship to humans. So even prepping it to go in the ocean took like many months of like being in this penned area, being under supervision. It cost millions of dollars. And if all that money went towards whale conservation and protection instead, goes the criticism, it could have a much bigger effect than following this sentimental dream of freeing Willie, who's a fictional character.
Yeah, this one particular whale.
And based on this, the argument that I was reading online from people who are interested in this kind of thing is that when whales are very domesticated, are very acclimatized to captivity, the ethical thing to do is create the largest, freest sort of captivity they can be in, and put them there, give them opportunities to socialize in a large tank captivity that isn't for the watching eyes of audiences, isn't for doing tricks and so on.
Right.
And that's significantly cheaper than the process it takes to reintegrate them to the wild, which makes sense when you think about it. So R.I.P. Kiko, you were a real one. I wish I could have climbed on your back in 2006 or whatever. I'm sorry we tried to free you because we couldn't tell the difference between you and the character you so expertly played. Greatest whale actor of all time.
Yeah, pour one out your blowholes for a real one.
Yeah, so I saw a whale, and I'm having a kid in the future. Not like the far future, not like flying car times. That we're like, we'll still be in the pandemic when the kid is born.
Joe Biden just said it was over, so not true.
Well, Joe Biden says a lot of things. You got to test for yourself.
Yeah, I guess that's not Canada. Nobody said it's over in Canada yet, so.
It's true. Yeah, I don't take COVID directives from a U.S. president. I take COVID directives patriotically from my own prime minister underneath the watchful eye of King Charles III. Long may he reign.
When King Charles says COVID is over, then we'll believe it. Yeah.
Interesting fact about King Charles, his favorite food is pheasant pie.
I would go so far as to say that you're not having a kid in the future. You're currently having a kid. Like, I feel like to me that means like we're planning to get pregnant at some point.
True.
But yeah, like
It's not it's not a moment. It's not like birth is this moment in time where there's no kid before and there is a kid after. It's
yeah,
more,
and we've seen the pictures, the slices, the blobs, it already exists. This
I felt it kicking.
developmental process towards birth.
Yeah, so thank you everybody for listening, and thank you for the well wishes that people have sent for me and my little unborn child and my girlfriend. Really appreciate that. And yeah, thanks for listening, donating, checking out Papa and Boy on Means TV, talking about what a great show it is, if you agree with that, which I confidently say that you probably will.
Yeah, I don't think it's for everybody, but I do think that listeners of our podcast in specific will probably really like it.
And I think it is for many people, and it's something you can share with your kids. It's a little naughty, but like in a way that I think kids will be into and that parents won't be too offended by, especially if you're interested in left-wing politics. It's a little insurrectionary for the young ones, but I think that in a good way, in a way that
yeah, it'll just make your kid want to hold you accountable, and we all want to be held accountable. You know?
right.
Also makes you look good compared to the papa, unless you're as authoritarian as the papas are. By comparison, you'll look like a very kind and allowing parent. Anyway, it'll make you look good to your kids.
Yeah, and it might make your kid ask questions like, Mom, Dad, is this a metaphor for our society being irreparably broken and it being handed off to me without me having the tools to change it myself?
Many kids are asking this after seeing Papa and Boy.
And we believe in personal parent choice and how you answer that question. I think there's arguments in multiple directions
Yeah,
there.
you could either say yes or you could say no, but with a big wink to keep the magic alive.
Okay, see you, everybody.
Bye.
1, 2, 3,
Maybe something's wrong.
Get that wrong.
I woke up this morning knowing I was right.